Hey guys, Robbie K dressed up like Iron Man tonight in an Avengers hat to kind of give you some hints on what I checked out. Yes, it is the big release of most likely the year, the record box office breaker probably of the season, and definitely one of the most anticipated movies of the coming opening summer. Yes, welcome to Avengers Endgame review. Another Robbie's reviews brought to you by me, Robbie, in the Iron Man costume. Now today we're going to go and do our very best to not spoil anything. So, of course, I think I do a decent job with this, so I'm going to give you what I can without giving everything away. The state of the Marvel Universe at this point. A finger snap has left half the galaxy essentially voided into space dust. Our heroes, feeling that they have failed, want to find a way to undo the chaos that Thanos did. And as such, they seek out opportunities to try and undo what the Infinity Gauntlet did so long ago. Will they be able to do it? What is lies in store? Well, surprisingly, based on the trailers, they've given you pretty much only the fine thread that interweaves through it. But again, this is a spoiler-free review, so Robbie K coming at you with Avengers Endgame. Now, overall, we're going to start with the quick and dirty review, and then we're going to get into the details. So stick around for as ever long as you want, because I appreciate anybody willing to listen to my comments. Let's get started. In terms of the movie overall, I myself like this one better than Infinity War. It had a much more nostalgic feel to it and started piecing together some gaps you didn't quite realize were left behind in this whole 22 movie spread. It does a phenomenal job of course, integrating its usual comedy role, but surprisingly brings more emotion to the flick than some of the other films that we've seen in a long while. A good balance of trying to use at least much of the main cast does very well, and for the most part was very impressed with how they were starting to bring a lot of these fan-made theories out into the light and still throw some surprises into the loop. If that's not enough to essentially get you into it, the action, of course, comes in the way that the Avengers does, with great special effects and phenomenal soundtrack to bring probably one of the longest action sequences to kind of hit the frame. Though I will say that it took a long time to get to there, so this is definitely not the most interlaced action that we've seen. Overall, it's established some rules and some timelines that fans may or may not like, and does a nice job of acting as sort of the movie to act as the precipice before the next launch goes. A fantastic display of emotion, some decent storytelling, and yeah, a few corny components to wrap up some things. But for the most part, again, living up to much of the hype, and I did truly enjoy it. Of course, there's going to be more to talk about in the dislikes and likes, but overall, the movie, I think, is going to live up to a lot of people, and seeing a lot of the fans' faces as it was coming out, I think did its job. So it's a little bit of balance for a lot of components, but again, there's more to come in the detailed reviews. What am I rambling on about? What are the scores? In terms of its category of action, adventure, fantasy, Marvel, this is a tough one, and I hate scoring the system and doing some of the things, so I'm going to probably put it into the range of about an 8.5, 9, with an 8 being the lowest in its category. The movie overall is probably sticking towards an 8, 8.5, to be honest. Again, really enjoyed this movie, had a lot of components, and stick around for a few more details, again, spoiler free. But until then, there's not much else I can say other than you don't have to stick around for the end credits, because there is no end credit scene at this point, though there is a nice tribute to everybody involved at this point, up to about the midpoint of the credits. So once those roll and the lights turn on, head on out, unless you want to wait for a lot of credits. Now, if you're sticking around, here comes the likes and dislikes component. And again, spoiler free as best as I can. The likes. Acting wise, let's get it out of the way. A lot of these people know how to act. They've been playing these characters for a decade, and you still have more to learn and expand upon it. Endgame's taking them and putting them in the next step, and the actors accomplished the goal of phenomenally integrating themselves into the mix. Without giving, again, anything away, Scarlett Johansson takes Black Widow and takes her to this new level. Captain America somehow manages to still be old Cap, but have a few more little tweaks into him. Tony Stark, again, Robert Downey Jr. being the chameleon actor that he is, phenomenal in terms of taking it to the next step. Other characters have their comedic timing down pat, especially, of course, my favorite being Bradley Cooper and Chris Hemsworth characters bouncing ideas back and forth, much as you saw with Infinity War. It works, and it's a comedy style that would be phenomenal in maybe a cameo episode or something like that, but not to, of course, be bludgeoned over the head. That brings you to the next point, the comedy. If you are a fan of Marvel, especially the Disney spin of comedy, then you're going to love this. Not quite as heavy handed as Infinity War. Uh, Endgame loves to find a way to bring in those well timed moments, that sarcasm, dry dialogue, and witty wordplay that works to me on so many levels. It's a phenomenal display of comedic timing. And again, if you followed the series, you're going to get a number of inside jokes that just really hits it. Well, even new fans to the series are going to be okay with essentially kind of the new punches for the generic comedy. In regards to the storytelling, surprisingly, Endgame did a lot better job of integrating emotion that kind of gets past the comic book feel. As the movies have progressed, at least most of them, they started diving into much more emotionally charged uh, or I should say pieces. And this one, I think, culminates very well into a number of things that are going to kind of give you the feels. Whether it's the jaw dropping shot, the integration of the music, or maybe just the way they took the character, you've got enough play to kind of come in here and get ready. And in addition to the story, you've actually got a good nod to a couple of things without again spoiling. First of all, the nostalgia. If you're like me and you love seeing the little Easter eggs, the nods to the other movies, some hidden details that maybe you miss and want, like those eye-popping moments, then this movie's got them for you and actually does it a lot differently than I thought they were going to do. Throw into the second step of the fact of nodding to what the series has in store. As Marvel fans, we love to kind of dig deep and find out what's next, where they're hinting at. And if you've been following a lot of what Disney's planning for this stuff, you know there's a lot of projects coming, and there are nods to how these are now making sense. And in addition to it, I've got to say that even though they don't quite follow the same rules that other movies have done, I gotta be fair and say that Marvel, at least for the most part, now of course second and third viewings you're going to have to make sure that this is true, but for the most part I gotta give them props at what the rules that they established, they actually pretty much played by. So kudos to that. In regards to some other components, again, there's some clever and creativity to it, and whether or not you like the story twist, that's really going to kind of be up on you. But otherwise, again, an actual well-integrated story where this movie is a lot more about the character development, plot, and sort of finding that solution than what most of the comic book movies are. And as a result, I gotta say that even though it is 3 hours, for the most part, it doesn't feel too much like that. And of course, I gotta say that the last two things I'm gonna throw in here are, number one, there are some phenomenal scenes that come in there and are timed well with musical score and that added cinematography effect that just makes you feel those things that you do when you see a scene that just sticks with your mind. For one of my friends, it's the Wonder Woman scene where Gal Gadot comes out of the trenches. For another who watched Captain Marvel last, it was seeing that face component of her just ready to kick butt. And in this component, there's about 6 scenes that are going to probably do that for a lot of fans based on how my audience cheered at them. Now, in regards to, of course, the one component you know I love, action. Well, I'm a little mixed on it, so we're going to talk about the like part of it, and then we'll hit the other part later. The like component of the action is this. They actually did a very good job, and nearly 42 minutes of an action scene really came into play to, I think, accomplish the goal of what I was hoping to see. I think fans are going to love that component, and especially some of the stuff that they're doing with it. But again, I can't go into details because I'll be spoiling some really big stuff. So sorry, can't go into much more than that. But take it from me is that ironically, a third of the movie is action. It just takes a little while to get there. Which starts and transitions into the dislikes for me. Now again, these are just my personal preferences, and you probably won't be bothered by this. That's okay. This is just some of the stuff I would have liked to see a little more into, just to kind of get where we needed to go. First of all, in terms of the pacing, the movie does a really nice job. As I said, it doesn't feel so much like 3 hours, But there are components that are a little long-winded, and these kind of ties and loops that they're doing are appreciative. I appreciate them. I give them props. But sometimes it gets a little too intertwined and maybe not enough details in some things and too much in the other. And I guess the inconsistency or wanting to kind of piece these things together is one of the things I want to bring up. Now, again, I can't say much, but you'll see what I mean by it is that they do a really good job of telling some stories, and very similar to Infinity War, some stories kind of get the shaft. And I can't say that it's quite as unbalanced as what we saw in Infinity War for me, but there's still some smoothing out that needs to be done with it. And this is definitely true for some of the characters. Again, they favored some of the storylines over others. And while I can't say that I blame them, because again, it's very difficult to balance this wide variety or this army of actors and actresses, but at the same time, a lot of the hype buildup and things that they were looking for didn't quite come together. Um, and gosh, I wish I could actually say them, but I'm afraid that people are going to be too turned off by it. But nevertheless, we have one actor and one actress in particular. I don't think quite got all the hits and all the time that I was expecting them to. And while they make the most of their time, at least one of them does, and they really utilize it, I still feel bad for for the actual actor who's been there since movie number 3 of the series onward. The comedy styles of him are good, but they're not utilizing him in terms of the hero aspect like I wanted or was hoping to see. But I don't know if that's his preference or theirs. So I'm kind of out of luck on that one. Sorry, guys. In addition to that, when it comes to the action scene at the end, it's awesome. I'm going to say it right there. And again, I can't say anything based on why it is, but I wanted, of course, more. Yes, I know 42 minutes for an action scene seems a little already overzealous, but for me, I could have taken another 18 minutes and gotten a little more extension on it. There are some characters in here that they nail with the action components. Others, comedic and sort of a dry introduction to kind of at least tie up some of the stuff that they did, that they introduced into it. And others, I just are barely a flick and a glimpse. And I really kind of wanted them to do a little better job now that there were fewer actors. And again, I can't say anything else than that, but I would have liked a little more even usage of it and just some expansions, especially when you have some of those jaw-dropping moments that we were talking about. In terms of the story, in terms of the twist, it just depends on who you are. Based on the things that they've done with this, there are some great close-ups and tie-ins to kind of cut this precipice. And leading into what the next phase does, well, I'm a little antsy about it. Because if my theory is correct, we may be going into one of the more contradicted storylines than a lot of people wanted to see. But you know what? Again, a nice transition for much of it. So there's mostly likes in this, but those are some other dislikes. And finally, the other thing that I'm going to say was probably my least favorite aspect of it is the fact that the action is not throughout the movie. I'm an action junkie. I'm going to say that right now. And that's some of the reasons why I love the original Avengers. Why I love The Winter Soldier. Even Civil War. Those movies and Black Panther. All of them had a moment and component to have that exciting action twist to sort of break up the more jargon-based, detailed approach to it. And while this one has enough nostalgic storytelling and character development to get you through it, it would have been nice to have a few more action scenes that weren't just kind of clips and bits. That it was a little more fleshed out to bring back the Russo style of action storytelling. I would have liked to see that because of, again, all the hype and some of the disappointment I had with Infinity War's Battle of Wakanda. Nevertheless, it wasn't quite there, and that's probably my biggest dislike for myself. But overall, let's kind of wrap this up again. Endgame, I think, did what its goal was setting out to, and for the most part, I'm actually pretty impressed with some of the twists. They surprised me on some things. And as much as I would love to go into so much more details of dislikes and likes, I can't do that because I promised a spoiler-free review. Now, if you're just going to go read it, I can't help you on that. But nevertheless, this movie, I think, does the trick. And I did like it better than Infinity War. And it's definitely higher up there, especially in terms of that emotional component and some fantastic usage. But for me, I would love to have seen what some of the other scenes were cut out of, because I feel that a director's cut of this movie, like Lord of the Rings, would probably be welcome in terms of how much more lies in store on the cutting floor. Especially, again, that action sequence for me. Overall, though, I enjoyed it, really liked it, and I think it was worth, again, the scores of around the 8 to 9 range is where you're going to see it for the most part. Not a perfect movie for me, but no movie really is perfect. But this one did a really nice job, and I think kind of took care of some of the limitations that I saw with the last one. Nevertheless, guys, that's Robbie's opinion on it. Happy to kind of do it, and I hope I stimulate some discussion with it. As always, constructive criticism is welcome, and I appreciate the niceness of trying to kind of go through the motion. But any way I can do to improve this, I'm more than happy to take the feedback and do my best. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later.